Greetings, this is going to be our regular monthly update on the displacement of internal combustion engine vehicles with electric vehicles. And the reason we do a monthly update, even though there's some repetition each month, is because this is pretty much the biggest technological disruption underway in the world right now. And it has a number of secondary and tertiary effects to its disruption. And a lot of people in the United States are actually a little bit behind the curve in their understanding of electrical vehicle technology and how many things they assumed could never change are actually being disrupted as we speak, and how the progress is truly very, very fast. So as with most months, we start off with my article about this subject, which I wrote way back in December 2018. It was an Atom Award of the Month. And at that time, electrical vehicles were only about 3% of all new car sales worldwide. As of late 2018, less than 3 years ago, they were only 3% of new car sales. And I even put forth a lot of conditions about what the disruption would look like, such as government and commercial vehicles being the ones that have to go to electric to create enough critical mass of the electrical car infrastructure. I noted that the US has 800,000 police cars, 210,000 US Postal Service vans, and a variety of other government vehicles. On top of that, private enterprises include 110,000 UPS vehicles, 60,000 FedEx vehicles, and perhaps over 300,000 pizza delivery vehicles. So if these were to go electric, particularly since they only drive short distances and are not really driving a 200-mile road trip very often at all, certainly never in the case of many of those types of vehicles, that would create the necessary volume for EV adoption. But it turns out that the progress of EV technology is so fast that even though this will help, it was not really essential to the whole thing. So we click on this chart. This chart from The Economist, which they themselves got from the US Department of Energy, is critically important because it explains why electric vehicle sales are rising so quickly. There are two exponential trends behind electrical vehicle progress. Not one, two, and that's why it can grow at such a high rate even from a pretty large base at this point. Battery cost, worldwide dollars per kilowatt hour, is falling exponentially. In 2008 it was this much, and now 2021-22 it's about 1/10 of that. So the cost, dollars per kilowatt hour, has fallen by a factor of 10. It is 1/10 the price. That is huge. That is why electrical vehicle affordability has risen so much. And the second chart here, this brown line, is battery energy density, watt hours per liter. That tells you how big a battery has to be. Can a battery shrink to the size that is needed for an individual passenger car? And while it was at 200 in 2008, it is about 800 now, so 4x over here. So when you combine these two charts, a 10x improvement over here and a 4x improvement in the brown chart to the right over here, you have an improvement of 40x. 4 times 10 is 40. 40 is substantial. The economics of an electric car are just very much better than they were in 2008 or even in 2010, 2012, for sure. And that is why this product is one that's being bought at such great speed, even though as recently as 2008, a number of people said we would never have an electrical car. We would never have an electrical car. And looking at charts like this and understanding the exponential trend behind a product category can enable you to make good investment decisions, good career decisions too, in terms of where you want to work and things like that. And I'll have other videos about that subject, and I already have a few in the archives of this channel. So what is the most recent monthly data? For that, we go to the Inside EV's website and their article about September 2001, the most recent month. The reports are delayed by 1 month, so at the start of November we get the data for September. At the start of December we will get the data for October. So the global data for September 2021 is 685,881 EVs sold, up 98% year over year, so almost 100% growth year over year, and 10.2% of all new cars sold, and the majority are fully battery electric vehicles, not even plug-in hybrids, which use a little bit of gasoline, but too little to really matter in relation to an internal combustion engine car. And certainly the combined gasoline consumed when you add both of these numbers together is virtually nothing. So 10.2% of new cars sold are now electrical vehicles. And this chart, a chart like this can be pretty complicated to read, so let me explain. There are 6 years represented by each of the 6 color codes below, 2016 through 2021, And then each month of those years is the bar represented in each month signified in the horizontal axis. So that way you smooth out any seasonality. So here we are in the September data, and you can see that for 2021, it's quite literally not only twice of what it was in 2020, as we just saw 100% gain, but 10 times as much as it was in 2016. And this chart doesn't go further back than 2016, but if it did, you would just see what is almost empty space, because if you went back to 2010 or so, and you could do that if you look at that chart in my article on The Futurist, you would see the sales as being almost negligible. It took decades and decades and decades to get to the point where even 1% of all new car sales were electrical vehicles. Now we're at 10%. 10%. And this is not just because of COVID or because of quantitative easing, because if you watch this channel, you know that quantitative easing is rising exponentially as well. And COVID affected 2020 as well. In fact, the effect then was much more than it is now. So we're at a tipping point or close to it, because 10% of all new car sales worldwide are now electrical vehicles. The displacement in terms of missing gasoline consumption, gas stations being repurposed, so that land freeing up, and even just the cost of transporting oil. When the United States was importing so much oil from the Middle East, remember that 15% of all that oil was consumed in just the transportation and refinement of that oil. That alone is an indicator telling you that that technology could not have been sustainable for very long, because it was a very expensive and impractical technology. And it's one of those things people in the future will find odd, that millions upon millions of barrels of oil was being shipped over 10,000 miles from the Persian Gulf all the way to Houston, Texas. It is one of those technological stories that tell us how the future world came to be, because these are the types of distortions that indicate imminent technological disruption. So 10% of all new car sales are electric vehicles, and we will see in future months what happens. What will it be a year from now, September 2022, which in fact is only 10 months away in terms of our actual real time. It may not double, let's say, but what if it was 50% higher? Then we would say 15% of all new cars sold by that point are electric vehicles. This is of course very unevenly distributed over the world. Europe, China, Japan, and the US state of California are all in the high teens to low 20s in terms of percentage of new cars sold that are electric vehicles. But the interior of the US is only 1 to 2% still. The economic incentives are not as compelling over there, because gasoline is inexpensive and the distances driven are large, although that's no longer a limitation of the newest electrical vehicles. But there's also a lot of cultural resistance to electrical vehicles, because a lot of the people in that part of the country still believe that electrical vehicles are no better than they were in 2002, or if they're old enough, no better than they were in 1981, and they still think of an electrical vehicle as a golf cart. But yes, they're misinformed and their information is out of date. But you are watching a technological revolution unfold before your eyes. One of the major disruptions of our age is happening as we speak, and I do a version of this video every month with the new data, just to remind everyone that you are watching something important unfold in terms of technological disruption. And I don't want people to forget about that, because staying on top of technological disruptions makes one informed about the future. At any rate, I hope you found this video informative, and if you like this type of content, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.